You don't remember what you were talking about when I left for the grocery store, and I said, "Yeah, we got to talk about that," and you were insistent that we do a Substack on it. I'll give you a hint. It has to do with the British and the Gaza and Israel and Palestine. Does that ring a bell? Okay, you want to give me an answer and tell me what you're talking about?
A good answer. The only thing better than a good answer is a good question. And so I woke up this morning and I said, wait a second. How dare the people who call themselves Jews, which was always a derogatory term, and it has nothing to do with their race, ethnicity, language, or anything else, but they adopted that name and put it on themselves. Remember that. Jews was Judah. And so they shortened it. And Judah meant from the tribe of Judah, of course, which was one of the two tribes that wasn't completely decimated when the Assyrians captured them. And it wasn't a diaspora. They bred them out of existence. And that's the reason almost no person who calls themselves a Jew, Khazarian, Sephardian, any kind of Talmudic Jew, none of them. You can be a complete Orthodox Jew. And first off, why are you calling yourself a Jew? It's an insulting name. If you called yourself of the tribe of Judah, or Judah, as later it was adopted by those groups of people. Remember, they're groups of people. And there's not a single person in today's world, only black Jews, and you may laugh, but only black Jews have any of what are called the original Semitic Levantian haplogroups in them. And that is because the Queen of Sheba went up and had a baby with Solomon, supposedly. But okay, and then I looked up the word Hebrew, and I always known that Paleo-Hebrew and Proto-Hebrew were from Canaan, right? So when it comes down to it, there's nothing about the Jews, their name, their language, except Yiddish, which was really a derivative of Sogdian, put into a secret language mixed with an old Proto-Hebraic language that then they could use on the Silk Road as their secret language for being a merchant banker or in commerce, which is all coming from Babylon. And that's the new book that I just sent to Tyler. It's called The Karma of Evil, White Magic versus Black Magic, because black magic is in economics now. And this is what we must remember. So what is the economics? I woke up this morning and said, how come I've never asked this question before? What, am I stupid? Yes, I am stupid sometimes, and it's okay because ignorance can be solved. So I looked up the answer in a number of places. Britain gives nothing to Israel each year. None. Nope, zilch, nothing. Now think of this, because remember the king, used to be the queen, owns half of Old Jerusalem. And remember, they owned Palestine. And technically, they still own Palestine if you want to look at the Sykes-Picot Agreement, or you want to look at the Greater Levant Agreement, or you want to look at when the French turned over after the Ottoman Kingdom was split up. They tried to control Palestine, but southern Palestine has always been a hotbed of zealots, let's call them, fundamentalist zealots. So they gave it back to the Brits. The Brits had Israel, or the sections of what we would call Israel now, and Jordan, and other sections of the Levant. So the French and the British chopped it up, and in the end, the French couldn't handle them, so they gave it to the British. So what did the British do? Now, this is what you need to know. Do you know that almost all the money for Hamas, now we've told you this, and I'm sure you had your doubts about the efficacy of this remark, but Israel supplies Hamas not only with money and food. Now, and I always thought it was money, but it's food, ammunition, and all that they need to bribe the people to believe that Hamas is like the old Palestinian Liberation Organization, which basically took donations from the rest of the world for their starving people in Palestine, and Yasser Arafat stole most of it and had his own ship and his own helicopter and his own airplanes, but Palestine had nothing. Well, this is traditional. But why? Because Yasser Arafat was a friend of Israel. The Palestinian Liberation Organization was to start and continue war, never stop war. And so we've been tracking that. Where did the missiles come from that come out of Lebanon, that come out of Palestine and Gaza? Well, the reality is, and this is just shocking because it's, if you follow the money and you ask the right questions, and you find out the following: all the money for Hamas comes from Britain.
Okay, I know you say that, but how much of our money, maybe even in the form of the formerly known as USAID money, which probably has become something else because they just didn't let that gravy train just get up. But anyway, how much of it really comes from America that the British are stealing from us?
The crown agents of Britain have always been the greatest recipients of OPEC. And OPEC and USAID is where we spend hundreds of billions of dollars a year helping our enemies. But it has to have a fiduciary agent, and the fiduciary agent is in many cases, when it went to Jordan, Palestine, Syria, Iraq, Iran, or any other place that Britain has influence, the money was through a crown agent. So they got their cut, and they really didn't do much of anything for what the cause was supposed to be for. But remember, the Secretary of State, little Marco Rubio, has supposedly, by legislature and by action, ended USAID. Well, I had said that when I was in high school. I looked at USAID, and that was my proposition. Oh, you have to end this now. This is a CIA arm of the government that is working for evil corporations that don't pay taxes. In other words, you're being double taxed because the corporations don't pay taxes, but we pay taxes for the CIA to make sure that those corporations make money, but they don't pay taxes.
So to give you a real clear picture, the enemy of humanity is the British Imperial Empire. It never went away. They just propagandized us and put us to sleep so we don't look at them anymore as the enemy. Now, what they did over time is they put up storefronts, so to speak, for the retail operation, like a mob does. They may have the big organization behind the scenes, but out on the street, you just know their retail operation. So the Pilgrims have used the U.S. government and our military as its retail operation to take over the world. Now, this isn't a far-fetched idea. The British, the pirates, the vanguards, they've always wanted to take over the world. I think Douglas might even say something about the Vikings before them. And what has happened, we're now at a time in history where enough of us are awake and we see the enemy. And we also know that this enemy keeps everybody in control through the use of blackmail, through pedophilia. Now, at one time, they may have controlled people through, they're having extramarital affairs or maybe some bizarre kind of sex. But in the end, there is nothing on the face of the earth and against God that is more heinous than the ruination of our youth, pedophilia. And I'm still livid that President Trump, if he even thinks that there is no Epstein list, then why can't you calmly explain it to your base? Why did you come to this conclusion? Explain it to us. Because with the facts that we see on the ground, we just can't get around our head how you came to that conclusion. And I think that you owe us at least an explanation of why you have this conclusion. For all the time and effort that all of us in America have given you, Donald Trump, to put you in this position. We know you're up against all odds. We respect you for that. We also know that your immediate family, Melania, Barron, Ivanka, Eric, and Dumbo, could also be being blackmailed. We get that, but you would find your base would be very loving and supportive if you would explain this to us. I just need to know, what did you know that changed your mind?
Before we go into Epstein, let's go back to some of your other remarks. First off, One of the worst places for pedophilia in the world is the British Parliament.
Yes.
The second worst place, maybe the first worst place, is the British imperialistic corporatism of white supremacy, which was started by Cecil Rhodes and was started as the Round Table and Milner's Kindergarten, Milner's Round Table. Later on, their entire propaganda machine and the Royal Institute for International Affairs. And then basically that got spread across the Atlantic and the Anglo-American Alliance, which is the Pilgrim Society, into the Council on Foreign Relations. As Hillary Clinton said when she was the Secretary of State, it's so nice that I come here to talk to you at the Council on Foreign Relations so that you can tell me what to do in my job as Secretary of State. That is the truth. We haven't had any Secretary of States. We've had the Council on Foreign Relations telling us what the British wanted us to know. And they lie about all of their relationships. They're the worst liars. They are the new Babylon, and we must remember this. They are, in fact, they are the synagogue of the Queen of Babylon, the whore of Babylon. The monarchy is, as Tyler just pointed out, the cardboard cutout. They're the empire. That used to be the British East India Company. Now, before that, they were the crazy Vikings. No one ever defeated them. All the Vikings ended up on the British Isles, and no one ever defeated them on the water until the Dutch came along. And then you have corporations, imperialistic corporations. Later, the Dutch East India Company was folded into Holland's administration. Because why? It was bigger than the country. They had more money, more wars, more ships than the whole country. So eventually they took over Holland. And still to this day, you have to go through CT Trust in most cases in America to even get the right to have your own company. Do you know that? That the Dutch own 75% of the rights of anyone who's created a company in America? How's that? Because the Dutch East India Company is still active today. The British East India Company got folded into the British Parliament. But what they didn't tell you is that the richest people in the world, Cecil Rhodes and 3 Rothschilds, actually technically over time it ended up being 7 Rothschilds, were all involved in this stream I just told you about, which had a 200-year plan to take over the world through white supremacy, imperialistic hegemony. And by golly, they've done a great job because America has been annexed. The Crown agents in America, Serco, the overtaking of our patent and copyright office, the overtaking of our judicial system, the overtaking of our political system. Every war that we've ever been in was either against Britain or fomented by Britain. Think of it, every war. There's not one that Britain and their imperialistic Rothschild, Coutts, Banks, Barker, all these people, which is in this new book that I'm putting out, just turned over to Tyler, The Karma of Evil, White Magic versus Black Magic. Because folks, you are in the prison created by the black magicians. Let's just put it real frankly. If you don't become a white magician and learn how to get out of it, your thinking, feeling, and willing is stolen by demons. This has been a 200-year plan from the British, but before that, it was a 3,000-year plan from the Babylonians. The Babylonians are the ones who took the gods of the Mesopotamia area and turned them into demons. Later, the supposed Hebrews, and there's no such thing, call them Jews. Well, they sure weren't called Jews back in those days. The people of Israel, which were the fighting sons of Abraham, went to Chaldea, and there they started black magic worship, and they started banking and all the banking tricks. That's what it's all about. That's what we live in. If you don't have a bank account in America, okay, I mean, really? Are there people who don't have a bank account? I don't know how you could survive in America if you wanted to have a modern life. But you can. I went to Hawaii and lived in a valley. All I needed was a tarp. So you can. I'm not saying that's not possible, but I'm saying that if you're in the modern world, like I'm talking on this phone right now to record this, you're dealing with demons, okay? Now, the demons in economics have wiped out cultural influence. and they've wiped out judicial influence. In other words, brotherhood and spirit. Totally, that is their war against both. Look at our judicial system. Look at what Trump had to go through. He spent $2.5 billion by the legal attacks against him as the president of the United States in his first term. Don't worry, folks, he's making it all back in his second term. And he's halfway crazy, okay, at this point, because here's what happened in the first term. You should be able to have noticed this, or you can go back and look. It's true. He gave orders to all cabinet positions, and they gave orders to all 56 agencies, and then there's 200 more below those. There's over 400 agencies and groups and committees, and no one obeyed him. Because the British Senior Executive Service, 10,000, appointed mostly by John Podesta, control all those agencies. And just because you're a cabinet member and you go back to the FBI and tell them what to do doesn't not mean that the thousands of people there whose job is on the line are going to do what you say. No, they're not. They may even write reports saying that they did what you said. No, they didn't. It's kind of like during Trump's administration. Did Mueller, did Horowitz, did Durham, did any of them do their job? No. And if he told them what to do, they all screamed, from Obama and his bunker there in Washington, D.C., with Valerie Jarrett and all the evil ones. Big Mike told the world that Trump, by law, had no right to tell the FBI what to do, the CIA or the State Department. That's pure insanity. They're all his employees. He tells them what to do. Obama told them what to do. Biden told them what to do. So what we're seeing here is this is the karma of evil, where disinformation becomes disinformation inside of disinformation inside of disinformation. So it's a conundrum inside of an enigma, inside of a puzzle, inside of an unsolvable dilemma. That's what he's faced with every single day. So that he's going crazy? Yeah, well, look at his hair. Look at him. Look at his attitude. So it's all changing. Now, what happened with Epstein? I'm going to try to explain this very simply, because I just listened to him talking to this bozo. What's his name?
Who, Epstein or Trump?
No, Trump was talking to bozo. What's his name here?
Bongino.
No, this bozo.
Solomon?
Solomon.
Oh, Solomon.
Solomon the bozo has a speech, who has a speech impediment, and yet he's an announcer. Go ahead, figure.
I'm just saying, really. You say there's nothing there with Epstein, and then you go to one of the shilliest of the shills in alt media, Shilly Solomon, and do an interview with him. Oh my gosh. Do you not understand what's going on with your base out here?
These were the most softball questions concerning Epstein ever, because, right now the alternative media is exploding. So now he's going to appoint a special counsel, and the special counsel may convene a grand jury, and then they're going to look. They just asked him these softball questions in this interview I just listened to. They kept, and he said to the nice, beautiful woman there, "Oh, I read your article every morning." I mean, he's totally cozying up to this beautiful, long-haired, big-lipped woman, right? The kind that he likes. To John Solomon, he's okay. He's all right. But John Solomon's an idiot. Remember that. Tyler has all this information on her Gab site about why he's an idiot. He's a total idiot. All you have to do is listen to him.
He's a Zionist. He follows Cecil Rhodes. He's a Zionist. I mean, what more do you need to know about this guy?
He's probably a Rhodes Scholar.
No, I don't think he's that. But go ahead.
He's like a Rhodes Scholar.
Okay, so we know he's Shilly.
Okay, so anyway, softball questions. So they pass over Epstein real quick. And then they go on to some very important questions. And this is Trump's point. He is trying to keep the world from ending. Because, folks, we have right now a chance to end the world, probably, if there's some inventions I don't know about.
That is bullshit.
I think with plasma, there's a lot of inventions we don't know about. And all I'm waiting for is to see the third force. And I believe plasma is the third force. So if they weaponize it, we have the ability to shoot it at the moon just for target practice, and change the orbit of the moon, which changes the orbit of the Earth, which causes the Earth to crumble to pieces.
Well, I'll tell you what. If we don't take this government by blackmail and pedophilia seriously, then I hope the whole world is nuked, because none of us deserve to live in such evil.
Well, the British way isn't just pedophilia. Remember Savile, the king's friend, best friend? He was a necrophiliac with children. Jimmy Savile. He had a whole wing built for a children's morgue that he and the king, as prince, went to visit where they have film of it. I've seen the film. They're going in and out of a morgue at night for children. That's how, just the beginning. That's just the beginning, as I just wrote in this book. I can get into the details of what they do. This is well known. They brag about it. This is part of black magic. In exact detail, I can tell you exactly what they do, because why? This has been known for thousands of years since Babylon, because of human sacrifice. They believe that the harvest is only going to be good. Okay. The Chaldeans followed not the Assyrians who had them in captivity. They followed the Sumerians, and people don't quite understand the way this works. Babylon was kind of a new Assyria, and then it went back and forth between Babylon and Assyria, the power. Matter of fact, there's great confusion between what is that hanging gardens of Babylon are in Assyria. Nimrod, King Nimrod, the Babylon king, is there. Well, Abraham was from Ur, from Chaldea. The Chaldeans were followers of Samaria. Samaria were followers of the Turanians. The Turanians were the black magicians of Atlantis. They had the power of the word, the power of vibration, the power to move giant megalithic stones via vibration, which I'm not going to describe to you, because that's another thing that is associated with this third force, the force they used to know. Well, of course, it's going to come back at a higher level. I don't think it's here yet. So the point is, right now, we're looking at, it looks like apocalypse everywhere you look. Now, let's go back to Trump. Epstein. Here's what happened. Bondi is confused when she literally wrote a letter, which I've now read 3 times, when she is demanding what she knows. I don't know how she knows what's in the New York FBI office about Epstein, his house, the films they have there, his phone list, and any clients that visited him there. Now, when Trump said there's nothing there, that is true. That was his scrubbed new identity after his Florida debacle, which I'll go into in a minute. Yeah, you get to hear what Tyler wrote already before I spew my opinion.
Yeah. See, Douglas was getting very close. He hasn't read the post that I did the other day. He can't keep up with me because he's so busy writing books. But I wrote this because what happens for me is I sit back and I look from a big distance, at a great distance, and I go, what does this scene show me? Now, what I'm getting ready to read to you is not truth. It is, I have no way to prove it. It is my imagination of what I see ahead of me. Is that a good way to frame it then, Douglas? I just have to ask that. Okay, so here I go. As the World Turns, because this is all one big soap opera. I used to love watching As the World Turns with my nanny, my grandmother. Okay, so in the next act, we see Blondie. Y'all know who that is, right? Flipping her long blonde hair as the president tells us that there is no Epstein there. Get over him and move along, scolding us like we were the king's subjects. Take it from a girl raised in Tallahassee, that would be me, and who knew the little Pam Bondies of the southern debutante world. The flip of the hair was a tell. She has secrets with her man, the president, but not necessarily sexy ones. Long ago in Florida, Mr. Trump asked the young, perky, up-and-coming Blondie for help in expunging some pictures, videos, and associations that would be unpleasant for his future presidential plans. Of course, the young Blondie was flattered and thought the older man's attention was genuine. Plus, he told her that he would help her go places. And for a woman who could see the wall just in front of her, this was an opportunity of a lifetime. So all that stuff about Epstein, Bondi, Acosta, etc. in Florida was about cleaning up the records that Epstein had on Trump, per Trump's request, which traveled through the tight circle of Florida attorney judge insiders thanks to the infatuated Blondie. In 2008, U.S. Attorney for Southern District of Florida Acosta approved a federal non-prosecution agreement with Jeffrey Epstein. Later, we would see Acosta being paid off by being appointed Secretary of Labor during Trump's first term. And let me translate that word labor. That would be illegals. Some might think that Blondie had an affair with the very ugly Alexander Acosta in order to get leverage to help the new Chad in her life, the wealthy and handsome jet setter with his own plane. Blondie gets paid off for her role in cleaning up Trump's Epstein situation by getting the U.S. AG position. Blondie has a special secret with the president, hair flip, and she is learning that he can be compromised and that she holds special power over him now. President Trump says he doesn't know anything about the Epstein files because he thought they were all destroyed by Acosta and Blondie until Satan Yahoo came to visit the day before, the little interview they gave. Now, this is highly speculative, and I have no proof, and showed the president pictures of pre-Mrs. Trump Melania in a lingerie photo shoot with underage nude children. But the close-up and cropped photos looks like, pedo, you know what? Seriously, you don't think, now think about this, people. You don't think that Epstein introduced Melania Klaus, how she pronounces her last name, to Donald Trump before first getting the goods on her for future blackmail? And there may be also material on Ivanka, Eric, and Dumbo with Epstein as well, but it's the photos of Melania that caused this loving husband and father to her only child, Barron, to do a 180-degree flip with Epstein. I can forgive him for that. I certainly don't hold Melania accountable for the wicked heart of Epstein, but now is the time for we, the people, to carry the torch forward. We have to leave Trump behind and keep marching forward. Patriots versus pedophiles.
Well, there you have it. You see, she's a writer at heart, and it didn't stretch the truth hardly at all. Here's the reality. Now, I'm going to tag on to what she said. That island, Great and Little St. James, all you do is you get on a boat and you go a little ways and you come to James Biden's Island. Do you think that island hasn't become the new Epstein Island? You'd be a fool to think that. It has secret ways in and out. And then you go online and you say, does Biden or any Biden own an island? They'll say, Joe Biden doesn't own the Epstein Islands. There were two of them. True, he doesn't. His brother owns one just a little ways from there. Okay, what is that? Everyone who's there, take a look. Take a look. Do you think any of the Jews on the list of the people who went on the Epstein plane are significant? No. Do you think anyone on the lists that we've already seen from the Florida, it leaked from the Alexander Acosta trial of Epstein, but remember that was an international trial. It was supposed to be swept under the rug, but it couldn't be because the Virgin Islands wanted reparations for the 1,500 people who were victims on that island. 150 of them were Americans, and they signed non-disclosure agreements and were paid over $100 million for their silence. The others were from other countries. Oh, well, let's think about this. No major Jew went to that island. Therefore, it's Mossad. I mean, right there. You don't have to go any further than that. Secondly, Prince Andrew went there. And what happened recently? The one girl who broke her non-disclosure agreement and said, just shortly before that if she supposedly commits suicide, she has no suicidal thoughts in her mind, and then she was in an inexplicable car wreck, in other words, QRS 11. Hillary made sure she died. Why? Because Hillary went to the island many times, like Bill. We know for a fact that Trump rented Jeffrey Epstein's airplane numerous times. We don't know how many times. He has his own airplane. Why would he rent Jeffrey Epstein's airplane? We don't have him signing. We don't know of him signing into that log unless he was owned the right of the log. Is this making any sense to anybody? Anything you do in international waters is up to you. He owned those islands. None of those are crimes. On the island. It's only off the island that it's a crime. So the 1,500 people who the police talked to from the Virgin Islands demanded hundreds of millions of dollars in reparations, the 2 islands and all of his assets seized from anything in the Virgin Islands.
So they made pedophilia legal.
It was 100% legal. And it is still legal to this day in Britain. Nobody is only now, because of Farage, are they beginning to look at the grooming gangs. Those are rape gangs. How dare you call it grooming? That shows the mentality of the Brits. Oh, that's just grooming you for the future in a good way. In other words, turning you into a prostitute who likes anyone we put in front of them, or at least will have sex with them. That's what Jeffrey Epstein's island was. Now, when you look at the list of people who go there, who went there on the plane, and they sign in proudly, they don't even realize what they're doing. They think they're going to get, yes, British aristocratic nobility or recognition, the Order of the Garter, the Order of the British Empire, whatever. Hillary has a bunch of them. Bill has a bunch of them. Anybody evil like Kissinger, anybody you know that's truly evil has a British award. Just think of it. Look up anybody. And you go, wait, that's perversion. Yes, that's called the Tavistock Institute. That's why that person got knighted. Everyone knighted means you are complicit with the British Empire and the corporate imperialistic hegemony, white supremacy.
Man, you just described Kevin Spacey.
That's him to the T. Where do you think he got off?
You have to say his name.
Kevin Spacey went to the island, I think, as many as anybody else.
He got knighted.
And he got knighted, and he got off all those charges. Okay, in Britain, there is no justice. There's the Queen's Court. And if anything ever touches into the aristocratic realm, it goes to that court, and then it's like a star. It's called a star chamber. It's called a grand jury indictment. That's where we get grand jury indictments. It's to collect all the evidence and sweep it away. Sometimes use it for blackmail later, sometimes not. So Jeffrey Epstein was, this is ridiculous. Alexander Acosta indicted him and captured the films. Now, why did they use America? That was to surprise Jeffrey, because he was also an FBI and CIA agent and a Mossad agent. But technically, he worked for the Britons. He would basically be called a Zionist, okay? And then you look at the people who he pulled into his circle. There were different parts. There were the people he was blackmailing. They went to the island. There were the bankers. Look at the deals that the guy did. The guy never earned a penny in his life. Where did he get all that money? He had the largest personal home in New York, in Manhattan or wherever it was. He had so much money that people would do anything to stand next to him for a picture. That's why you get all those pictures. And what is Jeffrey Epstein doing? Trump wasn't having sex with that girl. That was the same exact. There's pictures of Trump with the same girl that Prince Andrew had sex with thousands of times in the airplane in international space where it's not illegal. You see, they know this. They go offshore, they do things. And these are offshore, these are privately owned, these are private planes in international airspace. That's where the CIA does all of their serious interrogation. So anyway, Acosta took all this evidence, and then the British government got involved via the Virgin Islands. And then the Mossad came in, and the second that the conviction was found and he was convicted and he was given house arrest, which he never stayed in his house, and he continued to have Horace come there and service him, and he serviced his clients out of his house in Florida after the conviction. Hello? That's the reason the CIA swept him up, moved him to New York, and created a clean record for him that went on to Pam Bondi's desk as a list. That's what was in the folder. Nobody came, nobody called, he didn't do nothing wrong, he bought it all with clean money, and there's nothing there. And the rest had to be destroyed because he was a FBI. He bragged about this repeatedly, an FBI and a CIA agent. We know that Acosta said that he was given proof that he was a member of the intelligence agency, and what he was doing, he had immunity for. Now, they can claim that because it was in international waters. Do you see how all this works? It's all the way you phrase the sentence. So, is there anything to find from Jeffrey Epstein? No, not unless you go to talk to Bibi Netanyahu, who Tyler suggests when he came the second time in a row very quickly to D.C. to tell Trump and slap his hand and give him awards and say he's going for the Nobel Peace Prize and every kissing the rear that you can possibly imagine. He then shows Trump the compromised material.
Whatever that is, but the thing is the Mossad would have always kept a copy of everything. And when I say Mossad, I'm talking about British MI6. That's how the British control the world.
Beyond a shadow of a doubt. Why? Because they're all a bunch of sick dudes. You know that they tried to pass a law not long ago. I've often talked about this. Sorry if I'm repeating it for you. I hate to repeat myself. But they wanted to pass a law to make the age of, what do you call it? A girl can have sex. Consent. 9 years old.
Yeah. Because they got to cover their crimes.
Then they got mad when they came back and the other side said, oh, no. We'll go with 16 because it's not even 16 there. We'll go with 16 as long as you will do one of two things. Reveal all of your offshore accounts or give up all of your pedophilia. And they literally put this in writing.
Yeah.
They know everyone in the parliament is a pedophile or is complicit. Imagine that. What? That is the whore of Babylon.
Well, how is it really any different than the fund that Congress has to pay off for their sexual escapades? I mean, at what point have they ever paid anything off because pedophilia was involved? And how would we really know? We know that there's that money there, but where's it going? And who is it paying off?
When that assistant got caught having sex in one of the houses of the Senate or the House, whatever it was, in the Capitol, that happens all the time. Do you realize that there are millions of dollars spent every year covering the sexual assaults of our senators in our House of Representatives? The guy who stood up with the cane and started yelling at Trump, remember him? They've had to spend more money on him than any other single person for him assaulting people and literally raping them in the Capitol building. Now, if they'll rape someone in the Capitol building, which is a public grounds, what will they do in private? Now, you don't even want to go there. If you want to know the details, read my new book or go back and study Moloch, M-O-L-O-C-H.
Your new book. Well, that changes according to the day that you're listening to this video. There've been so many. Look, we've got them all. It's fabulous. Go to OurSpirit.com and you'll find each book. And if you tap on it, you'll go inside and find that we have a whole lesson plan for you on that topic. We have a couple of videos that John and Douglas have done, very, very high-level spiritual stuff. We have support material you can read. We have additional recommended videos. We call it the Invisible College. Go in there and you just will blow your mind all the things that you can learn.
Now, going on with the apocalyptic times we're in, Trump is so frustrated in Ukraine that I can't predict what's going to happen there. Because why? Zelensky is pure evil. He comes directly out of the eighth sphere. And if you don't know about the eighth sphere, go to our book on the eighth sphere. It is a direct, exact description, word for word, telling what the British imperialistic corporatists do all the time. And once you realize this, you go, oh, I get it. That's what's going on. And then you won't worry about it anymore. And you won't try to take one side or the other because you'll know both sides are guilty. Anyway, what's going on in Ukraine is insane, as I said before. Had the British not given those drones that they said were blown up on on a ship in the Black Sea, which never happened. Those are the drones that attacked Russia. Those are the drones that attacked Putin's helicopter. That's what kept the war going. Putin was coming for the final blow to survey his new territories. It would have ended then, right when Trump wanted it to end. The ceasefire was gone to the second stage, and they had reincorporated it, and Putin said, "I'm happy with the territories we have reclaimed." The war was over. Then the British came in, and they provided all those drones to go deep into Russia. Now they're bombing areas that are very sensitive areas of Russia, and bombing huge planes that supposedly deliver nuclear weapons. And so what is Russia doing? They're throwing everything they got, and they're building as fast as they can. Every day they build up, they'll get a few hundred drones, and they will send them in. And so we are seeing now more attacks now than ever before. Why? Because the British won. The British have two agreements for those supposed rare earth minerals and all the resources, including the oil and the oil pipelines in Ukraine, right? But Trump wants them. And Trump can't get them. Zelensky signed a deal, but it ain't happening now, is it? Because Zelensky won't stop the war. Because why? He's already stole. Notice I didn't say stolen. He stole $225 billion. And he spent $1.5 billion going to France and convincing that bizarre character, Macron, to sell him one of the largest banks in France for $1.5 billion cash. Well, that was money stolen from us Americans, we the people. And Zelensky's out buying stuff, right? And he wants more money. Okay, $225 billion wasn't enough for that guy. This is what happens with psychotic oligarch dictators. It happens with every single one of them for some reason. I don't know why. Power corrupts, total power corrupts totally. But anyway, so now what has Macron said? Oh, I love this one. Anyone who comes from Ukraine will instantaneously become a citizen in France. They want to do anything to get the reconstruction rights in Ukraine. You're talking trillions and trillions of dollars and the rights to control percentages of all the oil that they'll reopen through the pipelines they haven't blown up. Notice, neither side has blown up the four major pipelines. There's actually six major pipelines, and they haven't blown up any of them. Why? It's about oil, folks. That's why Germany and Britain and France want to go to war with Russia, because why? They don't have the oil they had before, but Britain's bringing it in through ships, through other countries, and stealing it from other places. But Germany and France are going down the tubes. Remember, right now, Russia is in a depression. China is falling apart. They're beyond a depression. It looks like they will collapse within the next year, exactly as I predicted. They will collapse. There'll be a new central committee. There'll be a whole new program. And the Belt and Road Initiative will be flushed down the toilet because it's failed in every single country it's been used. And Trump, what does he say? He just sits there and says, I control the tariffs. Now, remember, I told you this from the beginning. Tariffs take 6 months to take effect. We already have $25 billion from the tariffs. And he's only began. And as he just said in this interview, he says, you all are waiting for me to negotiate a deal. Here's my deal. I write a letter. That's the deal. Your tariff is this much. And then they all come begging. And so that's all he's doing. He just writes a letter to each of these countries and tells them like a king. And as people are pointing out, he's gone a little bit crazy and it's gone to his head. It goes to the head of everyone who's in control, and he knows he's in control because he also has the British in his pocket. They put up the money for Truth Social. That's $4.5 billion in his pocket, and it will be more later. Mark my words. That was the British gift to him. $4.5 billion to be
who he's becoming.
The new British boy, who then does what? Look at what he's doing. He tried to stop the war in Gaza. He convinced the whole world it was stopped. And what did Bibi Netanyahu say? Screw you.
I want you to remember that at the election time, he told people that this would be the last time we would have to vote.
In Golden Heights, the British Genie Company, the money goes to a Rothschild and to Warren Buffett and to a few other jerks like that. The money from the Leviathan, that's all British, but it's hidden through shill companies. Every time a Brit company opens, they have 3 shill companies that they go to after they get caught for their corruption. This is just standard operating procedure. And it's with every single company in America that is British directed, okay? And everyone in America that knows about the British imperial corporatists, they do the same thing. They create a fake company. For instance, how do you think people pay no taxes on stock market? Right before the end of the year, they buy something that says that it's a huge loss. Why is that company in the stock market a huge loss? Because the company that just manipulated that needed a loss to balance out so that they come out to zero taxes. They do this every year. It shouldn't be yearly. It should be by purchase. And if we had a sales tax on these companies, they'd pay taxes, but we don't. We have a complicated form we fill out at the end of the year, which goes to inept computers and completely inept people who allow how many billions of dollars to be stolen from the IRS? And as Trump just said again, after August the 1st, and he's incorrect, August the 1st will be the beginning. 1 year after August the 1st, we will have more money coming from the External Revenue Service, as he calls it, his tariffs, than we get from American Internal Revenue Service. At that point, if he turns off the IRS, whoever he says is going to be president from then on will be president, as long as they continue his policies. Because we're going to see, exactly as I predicted, all the things they're complaining about. Remember, all the lawsuits against him, they almost overturned the horse-face lawsuit the other day. He almost got out of one of the last lawsuits that he had to beat.
You know exactly what I was saying. You talk about King Trump. He certainly is behaving like he is the king of America.
He's the king of the world. Absolutely. And he's the king of patriotism. And he's the king of nationalism. And the globalists, oh, they won't even talk anymore.
No, you are not correct. We know him by his actions. And he is supporting pedophilia by not looking at the Epstein stuff, by giving us a sound reason why he has had the conclusion that there's nothing there. And all of us out here say the emperor has no clothes. Well, the emperor has no clothes.
I'm talking about what Trump appears to be. Nobody knows what Trump is really thinking. And we see that because every once in a while he reveals what he's thinking and you go, whoa, that's unexpected. And he's the emperor of the world. And what he's doing is he knows that if he breaks the back of the United Nations, which is globalism, he breaks the back of the Brits. And therefore America will come out on top. He already knows China's been defeated. His tariffs defeated China. They've gone beyond a depression. And now with all their floods and all their collapsing buildings and all their depopulation, and it's unbelievable. China is just going to be a mess in 5 years. They can't make a 5-year plan because they can't predict what's going to happen in China. Nobody can. It's going to be horrifying. They did everything wrong. They tried to jump over capitalism from communism into communism. Can't do it. They know nothing about capitalism. Every capitalistic venture they've done has failed. And now their social credit system doesn't work anymore. Why? Because people don't have banks. People don't have money. They don't have jobs. They're out on the street and they're protesting in China. Same thing in Russia. And it won't be long until, if they don't settle Ukraine, that Russia will be in the same scenario. And every other country you can think of, well, look at Africa. He just settled some of the wars that have been going on there for so long, all created by American CIA and British and Pilgrim Society interests, simply to fleece Africa. Well, that's ended in the Congo, and it's ended in a number of countries. No one even knew he was doing that. So there's things he's doing that are good. Now, is he doing them for good reasons? I don't know. I'm just watching the effects. I'm not watching the affects. I'm watching what he's doing. And he will get rid of Jerome Powell soon. And once he brings the rates from 4.5 down to 1, we will practically triple the amount of money that he's making. And that is before the tariffs take set. And notice there's no inflation this month. That's because they stopped the lies coming out of the U.S. Fed. And that's what Trump has said. Everything coming out of the Fed is poison. Okay? So during Obama, they gave him 0 or less %. For Trump, they just keep raising it. saying that they're scared of success, scared of economic growth. Think of that. The head of the Fed, who's supposed to be watching that, says he's afraid of economic growth in America. This is who these people are. These are Brits. If you read the new book, The Karma of Evil, White Magic versus Black Magic, you'll find out about what the Fed is, what the central banks are, who owns them, who owns the military-industrial complex. We point the fingers at all the evil people, give you their names, and practically give you their address and telephone number. And the deal is, who are they? The people who have come into alignment with the plans of Cecil Rhodes to take over the world by white supremacists through economic manipulation, propaganda manipulation, cultural manipulation, and stealing all the patents so that you can weaponize them before they get used for anything good for humans. That's who we're dealing with, people. Demons directly from the eighth sphere. Well, just to underscore what Tyler had said a minute ago, Trump is complicit. Of course he was on the list initially when Alexander Acosta took them and disappeared them with the help of the Mossad and the British. Of course he was. Of course Melania was. Of course Ivanka was. Of course his family was. What, are you stupid? Of course he was. He rented the plane himself and made sure there was no one there and there was no log. So what happened? Now, this is my distinction here. Listen carefully. When he said that there's nothing there, he is correct. There's nothing there. The scrubbed clean records of Epstein's time in New York City could not have put him in jail. Please remember that. Please remember that because of double jeopardy, they couldn't try him again for the same crimes.
But he owes us an explanation of how he got to his conclusion.
He can't give the explanation because the agencies that made sure these things disappeared, they gave what they have. And so they think that that's being honest. It's not being complete. Trump can't state because why? He was probably named in these things. As we know, there was the attempt to create a mimic of that with him and Epstein in New York with some girls. And there were two girls came forward and said that they were raped by them, right? And then both of them, one disappeared and the other one then reneged. That was an attempt to say this, we know that Trump is guilty, and so we're going to go ahead and build a false case because why? Maybe the truth will come out. The truth is never going to come out, folks. It can't come out. It's been expunged. Can Acosta say? He can't say. He would lose his license if he said the evidence that he saw. But what did he say? He said, certainly Epstein was guilty. And Epstein didn't even follow what the judgment was. He continued to do the same thing. And Acosta was scared of the Virgin Island British connection, and he certainly saw the hand of the Mossad, because by the time it left Acosta's office and it reached Pam Bondi to be given to the federal government, which is the order it would have to have been done, it disappeared. So this is the second time Pam Bondi has had the Epstein list, client list, and evidence on her desk. So when she said that there's nothing from New York, but she already saw it was from Florida. So it is a lie. It is a cover-up, and they can't tell the truth because the truth is Epstein was doing that for our own government, and because they can't reveal the people, the agents, and the methods involved in this. They can't tell you the truth. And even if they told you the truth, they can't prosecute those people because they've already made a settlement with all those people. So all the people who were involved in this got off the hook because Alexander Acosta was afraid, and he made a deal with the Virgin Island and Epstein. And Epstein paid them hundreds of millions of dollars and gave up literally billions of dollars worth of stuff to the Virgin Islands. Oh, that's right. That's the British. And in America, he walked from Florida to New York as clean as he could possibly be. So the evidence from New York will not get anyone prosecuted.